Empathy, the empath. It's a very romantic, poetic notion that it's all about love and kindness and understanding and putting yourself into somebody's shoes. But empathy goes much deeper than that. It has a significant social relevance. It is about the human experience in terms of our discrepancies, whether they are religious, cultural, economic, racial. Empathy is the ultimate uniter of humanity, and this real video could be viewed as divisive depending on what your mindset is, because empathy allows people to understand, and in order to understand, you have to listen and put yourself truly, now I'm getting back to the romantic element, you have to listen and view things from the perception, the perspective of the other person. It's about removing your own experience, removing your ego, removing your conscious and subconscious biases, and trying to understand what is this other person, this other demographic going through, experiencing, that I'm not. And just because I'm not experiencing it, just because it's not front of mind for me, doesn't mean it's not the reality for somebody else. A couple of trivial examples that portray this. It's easy for somebody to say, well, money isn't everything when you have money. But when you're a starving child desperate, or starving adult desperate for a meal, that comment does not apply, because now money for you is everything. That's all you think about. If only I had money to buy my next meal. If only I had money to buy a pair of shoes. That's what empathy does. It removes the fog and allows you to see a broader picture of humanity regarding race, regarding sexual orientation, regarding gender issues. It goes much deeper than this poetic notion of kindness and understanding. Let's get into it. My name is Vital Germain, author of Pink is the Color of Empathy. A true, deep 360 guide as to what empathy really is on a much deeper human conscious level. As a fair warning, it will require an open mind to embrace the following. 'Tis the season for political debate, racial debate, especially now that we have a future Black woman president. Yes, I'm calling it, but let's talk about this discrepancy in perspectives between how white people perceive the Black situation and how Blacks experience America. And by the way, just to start off with, my father's Caucasian, but I decided to become Black about 2 years ago. See how silly that sounds? Well, let's talk about it in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because Donald Trump, who I do not like, again, I'm going to reiterate, not because of political persuasion, because of him as a human being. It's got nothing to do with politics. If he were a Democrat, I would be saying the exact same thing. He's a vile, horrible human being. But let's get back to the race issue. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This seems to be this horrible debate, a leverage point for white people to claim that Kamala Harris is not qualified to be the president because she's a DEI hire. And this goes across the board in America. Whenever a Black person rises to a position, oh, that's a DEI hire. Subconsciously, there's this programming that we do not merit a position, that this position was given to us. So let's go back in history and analyze somewhat where this DEI concept came. And I'm also going to explain the parallels to the rise of feminine power. It's identical. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with the feminine rise. Let's talk about a very recent rise in how women have become airplane pilots. Because DEI claims that there's a better qualified man, and this position was now given to a woman because they had to fill a quota. But let's flip the coin and look at it from a different perspective. Women were not given the opportunity to learn how to become pilots. They were not given those positions. And if they had the qualification, well, the position was given to Bob because Bob looked like Joe, who had been established in the company. And so there's this boys club. We're going to keep this for the boys. We don't want women flying our planes. And so we can claim, well, no, she only got the job because, and I'm going to be crude, she only got the job because she opened her legs, undermining the ability, the quality, the value of this woman's intellect, her ability to fly a plane. She's been undermined for her work. In fact, her work has been twice as hard as the man in that same position because she's not been given equity. She's not been given access. She's been denied access to this position. So again, when she gets the job, yeah, we know how she got the job, don't we? That is so misogynistic and arrogant of men. In particular, forgive me for calling the white race card, in particular white men who are so privileged in having autonomy in decision-making in America. It's in their DNA that whenever their position is rivaled, they feel threatened, they feel so entitled that they can easily claim, we know how she got the job. I have dog hair. Kari and Kibo are everywhere. And so this situation with women, with pilots, and by the way, I'm all about women empowerment. I love the fact, forget the black color, I love the fact that a woman is finally going to be president of this country because you know what? Men, you've kind of messed it up, right? You've had this entire time, 400 years to kind of get it right, and you haven't really done a great job. I think it's time to give it to a woman. Bring a little bit more empathy and understanding, given Kamala Harris is ruthless, she's tough, which is good. Now let's bring it back to the race issue. DEI. It's the same thing. So imagine 50, 60 years ago, I didn't have access, maybe 70 years ago, I didn't have access to drink at the same fountain as white people. Those white people who denied me access to that drinking fountain or made me sit at the back of the bus, thank you, Rosa Parks, who made me sit at the back of the bus, some of those people are alive and have reinforced this white racism on their children and their grandchildren. And so that mentality is still alive today where you think we are not worthy or have the ability to rise. And so think about it. If you're not going to give me access to drink at the same fountain, you wouldn't give me access to a job. And that mentality has continued. You don't think I'm good enough to become the president of the United States because of my skin color. And when I do rise and I do get a job of value, you know how he got the job? It's a DEI hire. They had to. So where did the term diversity, equity, and inclusion come from? It was to try and minimize this incredible imbalance where black people were simply not given jobs, couldn't get education, couldn't get into Harvard. All these possibilities were not given to us, and this applies in sports. Tiger Woods comes along, a sport that historically black people couldn't belong to golf clubs. Along comes this black guy. Diversity, equity, inclusion. That's why we had to let those people in. They suck at golf. And you know what? Give us the opportunity, we take it, we rise. Despite the endless obstacle that the racist white American system, and when I say that, I don't mean every white person in America is racist. But here's the delicate challenge about that. If you benefit from the white racist system, you are somewhat an accomplice to the crime because you're benefiting from it. Tennis, women's tennis, same thing. The Venus, the Williams sisters didn't have access to tennis clubs. What an obstacle to overcome, yet they thrive and they dominate. Were they DEI hires? Some of you are going to argue, no, but they were the best. Yes, they had access to become the best. So any black person, give us access, give us a chance, give us a fair chance. And if we fail, all right, don't give us the job. But give us access, allow us to thrive, give us the same resources you've provided yourself under a racially biased system that has held us back for 400 years. Yeah, but that was a long time ago. Well, slavery became imprisonment. Slavery ended, and then so what did you do? Vagrancy laws. Yeah, if you're on the streets, yesterday you were a slave and you lived in a plantation. If you don't have a dwelling by tomorrow, we're going to put you in jail. Well, I was a slave yesterday. I don't have an education. You didn't allow me to read. I have nowhere to live. So I kind of animal on the street. Oh, now you're going to put me in jail for vagrancy? And what's the penalty of being in prison? Slavery. See how that kind of works? And then there was Jim Crow. And then when the black community does get together and builds an economic establishment, aka Black Wall Street, you blow it up. You knock it down. You don't give us access to loans. 60 years ago, I couldn't have bought my beautiful home here in Henderson. I wouldn't have had access to a loan. Legally, I could not own a house. Yet, you claim that we are lazy. When you don't understand the journey, you have to always look at history to understand what's happening today. And you have to take that history into consideration. If you put me in a dark room for 50 years and suddenly put me out into the light, you can't expect me to have the same eyesight as you. It's going to take me time to bridge that gap. But once I bridge that gap, trust me, your job, your position is at threat. And that's why old white men, racist white men who have been so used to having power and influence, you're afraid that we're going to come for you, that we're going to take your jobs and your positions and your women maybe. That's your fear. So you're going to keep doing everything you can to keep a brother down. You can't keep a brother down. Just give us access. Let us prove ourselves and stop trying to deny, minimize our achievements. And then the last thing I want to add, which has nothing to do with it, but while I'm on a roll, let's talk about some other general social injustices. When you call us thugs, when we rebel, when we fight back for injustice, you vilify us. And all we're doing, if I take David and Goliath, it's like calling David the criminal because he threw a stone in Goliath's eye, or whatever that story is. Goliath was the bully. He established the rules of engagement, of fighting, and because suddenly this victim finds a different way to retaliate, he doesn't become the criminal. But that's what the white system does. As soon as we fight back, whether it's civil disobedience, and I didn't mention Colin Kaepernick last time, but Colin Kaepernick has the decency to honorably, peacefully, I'm going to take a knee to make a point that we have been mistreated. Oh, you nasty black person, you racist black motherfucker. Whether we rebel with violence, whether we peacefully protest, no matter what we do, you're always going to undermine our struggle, our plight to be equal. So you tell me, what would you like black people to do? Oh, that's right. You would just like us to keep calm and allow you to oppress us and oppress us and oppress us. No, we've made so much progress and we intend to continue making progress. And the irony, the hypocrisy about all of this is that you are simply afraid to give up everything that you've stolen. You've appropriated everything that was not yours and you've claimed it to be yours. You accuse us of vandalizing things. Mount Rushmore, the biggest example of vandalism. Think about that one. Mount Rushmore, your monument to the heroes, the white heroes of America, is vandalism. You desecrated holy ground. Native Indian, indigenous people's holy ground. But that's okay. And if the indigenous people were to rise up, which they don't, but if they were, I wonder how you would react to that. Would you start insulting them and saying, yeah, we're going to go back and call them alcoholics? We're going to go back and call them, they scalp people. No matter what happens, you will always vilify anybody that is a threat to you. Women are a threat to white men. you vilify them, you take away their rights. Blacks are a threat to you, you vilify us, you put us in prison, you separate our families, you don't give us access to loans, education, you put us in urban areas without resources, educational resources. A war on drugs. There wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on black people. Anyway, this message was for those of you who are open-minded. Woke. Oh shit, I said term woke. My bad. Peace out.